Okay, so it seems that we've got even more going on with this Ironmouse situation, and this is something to do with a kind of bit of a trickle down from the whole streamer awards drama, which I think is absolutely insane that it is being dragged out this long by so many popular streamers, and it seems like it is still continuing to happen. And I kind of wanted to talk about it because, again, there's been a couple of clips that have been popping up the last few days that have either been really misinformed, been by some people who probably shouldn't have the best credibility in the community, and also just people that are looking to farm engagement or farm some kind of popularity off the current hatred of VTubers and just drama in general, right? And I do think it is pretty ridiculous that it has gotten to this point where obviously these content creators are now just trying to farm this endlessly for the past couple of weeks. It's been ages since the Stream Awards and everything that went on with Ironmouse and obviously the burnt peanut stuff, and then also the Ray and Rakai stuff, which we've also covered. And it seems like everybody just wants to give their take, but the thing is, everybody just has the same take, right? I think it is pretty insane that the amount of people, the amount of streamers that I've seen say, hey guys, I'm going to give a new and crazy take on this situation. I think the same thing that the guy did a couple of days ago whenever that clip came out. Like, it's insane. There are so many people that are just giving the same take over and over and over and over and over and over again. You know, like the common phrase, like, just turn off the screen in response to the Ray and Rakai situation. That is something that I've heard so many people say. Again, it's just like, do we need another person online to tell us this? Or is this getting a little bit out of hand now? Now, you have people like Blackboy Max here, which was one that blew up pretty massively recently, saying Blackboy Max wanted to bring VTubers, Ironmouse, and the Burnt Peanut to a real party in person, so all communities of Twitch can collaborate together. He said, Ironmouse, I need you to pop out to a party, no iPad if possible, let's bring the world together. Let's just play the clip as well.
Oh, what Ironmouse look like, nigga? Bro, in 2026, Ironmouse, I need you to pop out to a party or some shit, like, fuck it. No iPad, like, dead ass, like, just... You feel me? If possible, like, or something, bro. We got to bring everyone together. Burnt Peanut, you got to pull up too, gang. No iPad, gang. We all got to... She can't go? Oh, facts. I'm slow as fuck. Okay, well then, iPad. If we got to do the iPad, we can do the iPad, gang. But yo, bro, my nigga, let's bring the world together, gang.
So, yeah, obviously, he said, let's bring the world together. And he's like, oh, come out, no iPad. But, if you don't know, Ironmouse has a condition which obviously doesn't allow her to do that as easily. Maybe she could, but again, I don't know. It's one of these things where, it would be extremely hard. There'd have to be a lot of cleanliness and stuff put in place to the point where it pretty much is impossible. And yeah, it probably wouldn't happen. But again, maybe it could improve. I don't know. In the future, I'm not sure. But again, she does have a condition which obviously stops her from being able to go to events like this and things, else she will get very, very sick. Obviously, she's got like a autoimmune deficiency, right? So again, that is not going to be a very good idea for her to go out to a party, especially with a lot of other people there too, who are probably carrying all sorts of different, bugs and illnesses and things on them, right? So again, obviously, I think it is completely misinformed from Blackboy Max there to say, yeah, let's come out without an iPad. But he does correct himself, to be fair, later on, saying, I'm sorry, I'm slow. He said, okay, you can do the iPad and whatever, right? So obviously, it seems like he has done a little bit of, research. Obviously, some people as well are, pretty mad at this, quite rightfully so, saying, no iPad if possible. She is bedridden, which obviously, yeah, is pretty crazy, right? And I think that is the main thing that a lot of people are annoyed at with this. Some people saying, oh, this is, yeah, people say, you guys are the worst humans on earth. VTubers value privacy because they don't want to be in public and be known to someone. Some people value privacy, sorry. And again, I think that is true. I think obviously, VTubers, they all do it for a particular reason, right? Many VTubers do it because they don't want to be known. Many VTubers do it because they just like VTubing in general. Again, there are so many different reasons for someone to get into VTubing, but one of the big ones is, anonymity and not being able to, being able to not show your face and kind of, yeah, do some content without that kind of worry, right? And I think that obviously, yeah, bringing people out to a party isn't really going to be the best decision for some people that clearly don't want to show their face, including the Burnt Peanut as well. It seems like the Burnt Peanut isn't very open to showing his face, which obviously is very evident. But again, that is totally up to them. And if they don't want to attend these parties or whatever that he's talking about, that's fine, because again, they don't have to. That's the, kind of life that they chose to not show their face on Twitch, on YouTube, or, to anybody else that maybe that they don't want them to see it, right? And I think that is totally their decision. And I think people trying to pressure them into doing that obviously isn't the best, choice. I think that obviously Platboy Max saying, oh, we need to come out and have a party and things, obviously we don't need to be pressuring them into doing anything, let's be honest, right? If they wanted to do a party, then I'm sure they would obviously let you guys know if they wanted to do that. But it's very clear that they don't. And yeah, I think it is a pretty stupid clip all around. And a lot of people have been been saying this stuff. It says, she has an immune deficiency disease, and two from your nasty ass neck can probably one-shot her. Said, so yeah, obviously they're like essentially calling him stupid, sorry, for saying this. But again, a lot of people did point out the fact that he did correct himself later on, saying, oh, I'm slow, which again, I do think obviously at least he did that, because I think this clip would have been a whole lot worse if he didn't do that, because yeah, people would be just calling him completely like misinformed. Because what it does seem like, though, like I know that obviously he did correct himself and it makes himself look a little bit better, but I do think a lot of these people are very misinformed on what a VTuber is, on who Ironmouse is, and who even the Burnt Peanut is and stuff like this, right? They are just trying to get onto this to essentially, farm some kind of clicks, to farm some kind of views, to farm whatever they possibly can out of the recent VTuber hate, the VTuber drama, or whatever you really want to call it, right? We've had people like So Illuminati here, the video that Platboy Max is actually reacting to, saying like, almost like the VTuber model is like the Green Goblin mask, and that, they completely switch personalities, and they can't control their actions, and their life is completely different inside of a VTuber model as outside. Now, obviously, as I said, some people do that in terms of their VTuber models, right? You do have people with different personalities, but not to the point where, they wish that they were living the life that their VTuber model did. That's just not how it works, right? Because they are living the life, even if they are playing the character. I think it is pretty insane, right? So again, it just shows how much of a distorted view they have of VTubers in general, and how much they don't understand. But obviously they still continue to talk about them because it gets them clicks, it gets them views, and it gets them a popular clip, right? Obviously Sneako as well. He has been absolutely getting roasted lately over a lot of the VTuber stuff that he's been saying. Obviously during this clip he says they're doing it out of fear because the VTuber community will destroy your reputation. Ironmouse came at me last year saying I'm a horrible person, and those fans are really gonna attack you. Imagine the person who watches a VTuber. Now, obviously, many people clap back with this, obviously with the whole, Moist Critical thing that went on whenever Moist Critical absolutely cooked him, but also with the fact of a lot of his statements in regards to many different things, including the film Cuties, which obviously was a extremely controversial film due to its sexualization of, you can guess what I'm about to say there, and he enjoyed that film and defended it, which is absolutely insane. It's pretty disgusting, to be honest. And obviously, yeah, he defended it, and many people were like, oh, but that was in the past and stuff like that. But he still, went on, online and defended it and said he loved the movie, which again, I think is absolutely crazy. And obviously, he's sat here saying, oh, imagine the person who watches a VTuber, right? Again, I think it's crazy coming from somebody who literally enjoyed watching Cuties. I think that's insane. And obviously, as well, he goes on to talk about how, they're doing it out of fear and the VTuber community will destroy you, saying that Ironmouse came at him last year. But again, I don't think it was just Ironmouse that came after Sneako last year. I think it's the entirety of the internet that came after Sneako last year for a lot of his statements on a lot of stuff to do with children, right? I think it was pretty horrible how that went down. And you can see how much of a negative reaction this got, and people obviously kind of be like, wait, wasn't this the guy, that did this, and this? Which again is 100% true. People say, pretty sure people came at Sneako for him advocating for marriages involving underage kids. So he's just mad because they won't let him pay to watch. They said his reputation was destroyed long before then. There was nothing for the VTuber community to destroy. They simply just retold the truth about this dumb fuck, which again is true. The truth. They're completely right? The internet already had crushed this guy, including people like Moist Critical who had already crushed him. But obviously, he wants to, farm the VTuber hate even further. That he goes ahead and then blames it on the VTubers as to why, he was so destroyed and things. back then, which as I said, we know that wasn't the case. Which again, I think is absolutely crazy. They say what destroyed Sneako's reputation was him going to that swinger party with his girl and talking about what happened at that party on stream, which again, yeah, also destroyed his reputation. Obviously, the stuff about him being we also got this quote as well saying, "Remember, these are mags," which obviously is from the infamous video where Moist Critical talks about his guns and stuff and talks about the fact that these are mags and not clips because, you know, he was making, Sneako was making some pretty, yeah, threatening things towards him. Which again was crazy. And obviously I said here as well, in terms of this clip, this is a clip as well from Los Polos TV, who obviously is pretty big as well over on Kick, talking about, you know, you know, they said that explains why that's a VTuber if that makes you shake in response to the Ray and Rakai thing. And I'm going to be honest, yes. Like, what do you want me to say? You know, he's saying it like it's some outrageous thing, saying that explains why she's a VTuber if that makes you shake. Saying that if something like this, if a situation like this makes you shake, that's probably why you should be a VTuber. Yes, that is why she's a VTuber. I don't know why we have to confirm this, right? Some VTubers struggle with social kind of situations. And I'm not saying that this is particularly Ironmouse's reason for doing so. But again, it's a lot of VTubers are out there that struggle with kind of things like that and get uncomfortable just like Ironmouse did. And yes, that is why they are a VTuber. Again, I don't know why these people feel the need to either point out the obvious or regurgitate exactly what someone else has said from a previous time. He also does the infamous line of, "Oh, just turn off the screen." And you know who else does it? Sneako also does the line of, "Just turn off the screen." Right? Again, I think it is crazy how many of these people keep on coming out saying, "Hey guys, I got a new idea about Ironmouse. Maybe she should turn off the screen." It's like, oh, well done, you know, Aristotle. Like, you're probably one of the smartest people here, right? Again, there's so many people that are doing this that are just like, hey, you know, I've got a new idea. And it just tends to be the exact same idea that the last guy had. So again, I would really like to see some actual new take on this rather than some dude sat in his chair just be like, yeah, guys, I think that this and that, it's just the same thing. Again, I think it is pretty ridiculous. And it's getting to a point where this is being dragged out way longer than it needs to be. But yeah, essentially that is it. That is all I got for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to Game Subs, use my code CASIC, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. So, see ya.